Hey parents, welcome back to another episode of Family Mojo, where it's not magic, it's just hard work. We're going to keep using that. That's actually good. And there is no magic to parenting. It's hard work, it's consistency, and the more we can actually fill our toolboxes and the better off, the more resources we have, the better off we have at making a huge impact in our kids' lives and our students' lives. And so today I want to talk to you about something that might be super pertinent, maybe not so much to the younger kids, although we can't exclude them from this, but definitely for like older elementary age, our middle schoolers for sure, and in our high schoolers that live in the home. I want to talk to you about this. And here's a question. Is your kid, is your student secretly struggling? And the reason why I'm asking this is because it's happening in our own home. We have to be very observant parents to understand and see and again observe our kids and what we know them and how we know them to be, naturally who they are. And when something goes south or something doesn't seem right or something is, kind of out of whack, that may be a little bit of an insight to our kids in a time of this lockdown, pandemic, distance learning, man, that they're struggling with life and themselves and, their peers and school. I mean, it could be anything. And so I want to talk to you about a couple of things, how we can, maybe, it's the barometer to kind of realize or to figure out if our kids are struggling. And it's super important. And here's the deal, this is going to be the hard one. But I'm gonna say it because I say it lovingly, and I say it because it just needs to be said. You are parents, you're not their friends. And as parents, we need to be able to know our kids for the most part to the best of our abilities so that we can identify when things are wrong. Friends don't necessarily pick up on that kind of stuff. They're just happy to be around people. They want to please their peers. That's not our job. Our job, especially when it comes to this subject, is to be able to identify from what we know to what's different. That's how we can kind of pick out if our kids are struggling. And so, be observant. Be observant parents. Get to know and know your kids and your students so that you can have these hard conversations, and they're hard sometimes, with your kids when you feel like they're struggling. And so here we go. We're going to get into these. The first one is isolation. Now, some of us, we may say, and we have it, Deb and I we have a couple of our kids that are, they're introverts, and we understand that. We know that about them. And then some of our kids are super extroverted and, super social and, they're all over the place, right? So isolation, it's really easy to pick out when our super extroverted, kids are withdrawing and they're isolating themselves. So that is a conversation. When you see that, it's okay for you. You have permission. Not only do you have the permission, but you have the authority to have that conversation with your student or your kid. Hey, what's going on? I see this. And allow them to kind of explain to you what's going on. And if they don't, dig. Dig. Don't let them just get away with, no, I'm fine. That's not true. When my kids, I ask them, or even your kids when they're at church, I go, hey, how you doing? They go, fine. I go, well, why are you fine? Or I'm good. Well, why are you good? Tell me why you're good. Well, they need to tell you why they're isolating or why they're withdrawing or why they're not being those kids that they normally are. Why is it? dig deeper. And for the other, like for introverts who, again, introverts are social as well. They can be social, but when, they need to be recharged, they need that alone time, their own space. I would say with introverts, when that alone space becomes their space more times than not, that they're, rejecting invitations from friends, to go and hang out or, go to lunch or coffee or whatever, to go study over at their house. When they're rejecting those things, and normally like our introverted kids that need to be recharged by, withdrawing and, being by themselves, when that happens, ask the question, hey, what's going on? I guarantee you, basically it models a very healthy communication between us as parents and them as kids. And what you do is you let them know that you care. Like sometimes our kids will isolate and withdraw because they want us to notice. They want us to be aware that something is going on in their lives. And so if we don't dive in, speak into, it's just going to further reinforce something that's a lie. And the lie is that we don't care. And so when we see this isolation happening, it may be a sign that our kids are struggling. And so, again, not permission, but there is permission. But the authority part in you as a parent is dig deep, ask a question. The other one is obsessing with dark themes. And so for most of our kids, this isn't an issue. But for one, it kind of is. And it's on my radar. It's on my radar. And I'm saying there's nothing wrong with kids reading about death and, just stuff like that, or playing video games. And I'm not here to judge you about what video games you allow your kids to play. That's between you and for them and Jesus. But if you allow kids, your kids or your students to play first-person shooters and shooter games, awesome. That's not the issue. The issue is when they start obsessing over it. And that becomes the only thing that they want to read or they want to watch or they want to play. Again, as parents, we need to understand what the normal is. And when it starts to dip and when there's obsession with darker themes and death and, just all this destruction, again, ready? We have the authority to ask the question hey, what's going on? Because this is what I know and this is what I see. Ask the question. It may save your kid from going down a path that you don't want them to go down. Just by you asking the question and interfering, which I don't care. I'm going to interfere in my kids' lives every time something like this comes up. But for me, it's love. I would say it's the same thing that Jesus did for us, is that he became that person that stepped in the gap of, I'm not going to try and be over, Christian, but death and life. And so step in, provide the truth and the awareness that your kids need to, again, get that barometer back to who they really, truly are. And you know that. You know who they are. The other thing is this, and this is a tough one for me because, I was that kid. I still find myself being that kid, is their eating habits. We sit, most of the time, maybe 5 days out of the week, 6 days out of the week. We sit as a family, during dinner together. We eat together. And so, again, we have, we have healthy eaters in our family. I've modeled it for them. So when your kids, and it goes both ways. When you have, your kid and your kid's diet looks like this and then it changes, and the change could be now they're eating more comfort food and that's not kind of their MO, or they just stop eating altogether and they kind of pick at their food and play with their food. Or you ask them to go and have, twisted and glazed or fast food and they don't want to, and normally they would take you up on that offer. There it is. There's the insight. There's the red flag, And again, it's the hard question or the hard conversation about hey, is there something going on? Because normally you would do this, or, and I, maybe it's a sensitive thing sometimes with, our older kids. It's like, I'm not trying to, say anything other than my observation is that, you're eating a lot more junk food than normally. And for me, I love you. So is there something that's going on that I can kind of help you with, or I can just listen to? Those kind of words, I think, are disarming and allow the portal of communication, healthy, honest, open communication, to kind of open up. And man, they're great conversations, sometimes hard for your students or your kids to, speak, but sometimes it's hard for us to hear because they may be in a bad place and they may be struggling. And we never want our kids to struggle, right? So, eating habits. Make sure you're aware of what they are, and when they go awry or they go south, make sure you ask that question. The other one is personality changes, and again, like if you have a middle schooler, good luck. and I mean that kind of jokingly, but again, it's the awareness, the understanding that as parents, we need to know our kids. Deb and I have 6 kids. They're pretty much all different to some form or fashion. They were all unique in their own ways. They share some similarities, but they're all unique and created uniquely. God, that's just what God does, right? And so we need to understand and know their uniqueness, and that takes observation, that takes time. That's us being parents. And so when there's a shift in personality, again, have the conversation. Go, man, normally you wouldn't like go off and be frustrated, or normally you would kind of like dive in deeper and you're kind of withdrawn. Like, so what's going on? Normally you're super, excited and happy, and you're kind of moody, and, I'll just, tangent, we'll just side tip and give me a little bit of grace. We had 4 girls in our home. I get it. They get their little friend, and, and I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. It's just the truth. Guys can do it too, but if we don't have those conversations and be open to, hey, it's just, I have my friend or whatever. Cool. Okay. But then be very observant, like, the next week, so that that's not just an excuse and you're being on top of your game as a parent, because personality, changes, shifts, they could be a red flag. They could be, there could be something that is pushing, forcing, weighing in on our kids and our students that they need help with. And guess what? God gave them you. God gave them me. God gave them us as parents. And if we just kind of dismiss it, and if we're passive, then they're going to struggle. And their struggles may turn into or grow into something a lot more than just a struggle. And so we have to be parents. We have the authority just to speak into it. And the last one is this, like sleeping patterns. Like, if your kids are like my kids love to sleep. So, I know, there's no expectation for them to be up, out of bed, earlier than noon on the weekends. Don't judge. And then, regular sleeping habits, going to bed, at a certain time at night, whatever you've kind of, given to them during school, and then waking up at enough time to at least, brush their teeth and comb their hair and wear something nice. They're probably in their pajama bottoms, doing this distant learning. So, but if you see a tendency where they're unable to sleep and they're up at night, say something, maybe they're just overwhelmed with thoughts about whatever. I guess the moral of this, or the theme is when we see our kids and our students, and in their lives there are tweaks or there's changes, we have to be able to be aware. We have to have our, observation, lenses on, so that when our kids are struggling and they're showing signs that they're struggling in life, especially during the season that we find ourselves in, that we notice it, that we see them. And a part of us saying something and then, stepping into that conversation is telling our kids that we see them, that we love them, and that we're here to help them through anything that they're going through. So, isolation, obsession with dark things, eating habits, changes in personality, sleeping patterns, there's other things. All I would say is this: when you see something kind of shift, ask a question. Thanks for tuning in to Family Mojo. Hopefully this helps, because I know that it's helped me. And again, I love this, Family Mojo. It's not magic, it's just hard work. See you guys next week.